Hello, thank you for tuning into my channel. We're joining our t-shirt quilts today, so if you want to see how to join blocks like this with no sashing, please stay tuned. I have the quilt laid out here. It's mostly put together. If you look carefully, the top two rows here, these two rows are joined all the way. So every single one of these blocks is joined together. But then when you get to the third row and down, these rows are only partially joined. So I have a big section of 9 and then two large sections of 6 here in the middle. At the bottom, it's the same thing. I have 2 rows of 3 that are joined, and then on the end there are 2 rows of 4 that are joined. I have these rows, or these 2 blocks, they're joined. So the ones that we're going to see added on today are these bottom 2 here. So we're going to start at the sewing machine and see how we put these 2 blocks together. I have my 2 pieces of my 2 blocks here. And what you'll see when you look at the block is you're going to see layers of, there's the top layer that has a stabilizer, there's batting, and then the bottom layer also has stabilizer. Since I've used a iron-on stabilizer, those parts aren't going to come off. As I was looking for ways to come up with a technique for doing this without sashing, I did find one video that worked for what I thought would be good for the technique, but there are a few things that that were different about what she was doing. She was using 100% cotton fabrics, and she was also using the stabilizer. It was like a water soluble something and something. I'll put a link to the video in the cards. And she had embroidered her blocks in the hoop, and so there was a little bit more room to play as far as getting the pieces to fit together. So I've modified that just a little bit, but hopefully it will still work, and hopefully it'll work for you as well. So our first step is going to be, we're going to stitch the top layers of both of these together. So I'm going to put these right sides together, but I'm going to pull back the batting and the backing on both sides so that we're only stitching together the top layer. And I had previously marked a 1/2 inch inside the edge of my block, and so we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance for these blocks. So I'm going to go to the machine, and I have my walking foot in the machine, and I'm still using my thicker needle, but I'm using just regular quilting thread. I've moved my my fabric is over at the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm just going to start stitching. Now, because these layers are very thick, not the fabric itself, but there are 2 layers of batting under here, because they're pretty thick. There may be some time where I have to actually push the fabric through, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's my walking foot is not going to be even on here. So it's going to make for some interesting stitching, but it's still doable, so don't feel like you can't do it. It's still doable. You may have to do a little bit of pulling and tugging. I know that's what I'm going to have to do. And constantly checking to make sure that that the batting is back so that you can still stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch both sides together, and I'll show you what it looks like when we get finished. So I have stitched the first this seam, so you can see the top 2 layers are stitched together. When I open it up, you can see there's no sashing here, and they're stitched this way. The next step, I need to decide what part I'm going to fold over and stitch. I have to cut. I'm going to cut this seam allowance as close as I can to the thread, and then I'm also going to cut this batting and backing down just a little bit to meet that seam line, and I'll cut this piece of backing off of the front section. So I'm going to be folding over the white section, so I'm going to cut back everything else. I'll do that off camera, and then I'll show you what it looks like. I want to show a little bit of this on camera. Again, I'm just going right along the edge of the of that fold, so that I catch all of this in there. In our original video, they actually stitch in the ditch from the front, but when I tried that, it didn't work out the way that I would have liked it to. So I'm just gonna do it this way. And so this is not a perfect process, but it's definitely workable, and you won't be able to see very much stitching from the front, hopefully. Alright, so I'll finish this. Again, I'm going to stop at about a 1/2 inch from the edge to join it with the other row of fabric, and I'll show you what that looks like. Here is the finished blocks. There is a thin line of stitching right here. I don't even know if you can see it on the camera, even though I'm using a darker gray thread. And that's really what we want, even on all of the blocks, no matter what the color. It was very not noticeable. You have to look at it really close to see it. I'll flip it around this way, and I'll point to the line of stitching, but of course it's on this fabric, and this is a darker fabric, so you can't see the line of stitching at all. I want to show you where this goes in the quilt so that we can see how the whole thing comes together. Action. Here are the 2 blocks that I have just finished. They're all put together on the front and the back. And so my next step is actually going to be to start joining these together. And I want to join them together so that I don't have a large number of jerseys that I'm sewing at one time. So I'll start with these two sets. And so I'll only be sewing together the 2 jerseys. Okay. Then I'm going to put it with this set. And, you know, ideally, we're going to have that 1/2 inch seam allowance there. I have to pull that out because I made a mistake there. But then I'll sew this, and again, just sewing 2 jerseys together at a time, this one and this one. And then I'm going to go up to this middle section, and I'll sew those 2 sets together. So that'll be sewing 3 jerseys together at a time. And then again over here, sewing 3. And then I'll sew here, which will be sewing 4, and then 5 along the center, and I'll only have to sew all of them together, all 7 together one time. So I'm really excited about putting this quilt together. It's going to be a lot of fun, even though it's going to be totally hard work, but I think it's definitely going to be worth it. Then my last step is going to be to bind the quilt, and I do have some fabric around here that I can use to bind it, so I won't have to buy any more fabric for it. So if you have questions about the technique, please leave them below. Thumbs up this video, share it with your friends. If you haven't joined our quilt along, please check that out. I'd love to have you as a part of our Bargello quilt along. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!